this big story. Now, TV Mohandas Pai, in fact, also joins us live. Chairman are in Capital. Thank you for being with us. Through this campaign right here on NewsX, Mission Exam Shield, we're trying to draw up a charter, inviting experts like you to try and identify these problems which exist in our exam ecosystem. How important do you believe is such a mission and how will it help bring about change?
Well, first of all, I think we should reduce the numbers and complexity of this open test all across India. If I remember rightly, the JEE tests for IITs are held across two separate examinations, JEE and JEE Main. Only the top 20% or something qualify for JEE Main, and from that the selection takes place. So if you have a test for 20 lakh people, 25 lakh people, the points of interactions expand dramatically, and once they do, the chances of any fraud, any leakage become that much more worse. So we got to be careful. Point number one. Point number two, we must reduce the stress in the entire examination system. How do we do that? First, we must make it fully automated, computer-based, automated. And two, we must allow students to take 2 or 3 attempts during the course of the year. I think it's very important to do that, because then if I go on a first occasion, if I take the test, I feel I've not done well, I should then afford to do it again in the next 1 quarter. So maybe every quarter you must have a test, and it should be a large test. And during the course of the year, if you have 2 or 3 tests available to everybody, then you choose the top 20% or top 30% to come for the final test. That may be better, because then you reduce the stress and the mystery of the qualifying examination. Remember, even for the IAS, I think, you have 2 kind of tests, right? You have to go through that, and then only you qualify. So you got to have a cutoff which qualify for the final test. So the numbers become smaller, easier to manage, and it has to be fully automated. So you reduce the stress in the entire system. And the third, you got to build in security. It's important to have security throughout, so that you see what can go wrong. Can exam papers leak? Which are the points of exam paper leakage? How do you pick the exams? How do you do it? The JEE test system is very, very good. And we must take advice from them how to do it for NEET, so that, we can do that correctly. And next, any computer-based test and things should be fully tested. Does the system work? And does the, center work? Which are the centers? We got to do a full due diligence before we start doing that. It's important to understand that this has to be done very differently, and it has to be tested. For example, we are told for the CBSE, the technology was done by some small unknown company, which is very wrong. It should be done by somebody who can take responsibility. And they probably did not test their systems properly. And then there were mistakes in sending the kind of papers, etc. Because students are very sensitive to what is happening. There are too many people, applying for limited seats, and that creates great anxiety. And there is a coaching mafia which is behind all this, which instigates people, which try to, manipulate, tries to get things wrongly, many of them, not all of them, and that must be stopped. So we must make sure that it's two-pronged. We must say it was computer-based. The system had to be done. Next is, we must have a proper change management protocol. What is change management? Whenever bringing change, how do you educate the users what the change is? How do you educate the people who hold it all the time, what the change is? And how do you make sure that everybody is trained for the test so that it happens seamlessly? And we must also have a crisis management group for every large test. What are the things that can go wrong? Can examination paper leak? If the leak, what do we do? How do we find out? And how do we react to that? How do we tell people what has happened? And how do we catch them? How do we penalize them? We must have a crisis management group in the NTA or in the states, where these people are tasked with seeing what can go wrong, how do they put protection, if things go wrong, how do they communicate, etc. For example, a NEET examination, as soon as this became clear that there's been a leakage, they should have communicated immediately. They stayed quiet for a few days, they were in denial, they should have communicated. Now you see, when people with fake mask cards are coming and going to the media, NEET is communicating immediately, and that has put a stop to all the fake news happening. That's very good. That's the way to react. So we must check up what happens on social media and in the media and look at the chatter and be ready. So you need to have a crisis management group to make sure that in case something goes wrong, you have a team which is ready to do that. Now, every time something goes wrong, they blame the minister. The minister has got nothing to do with it. In the current system, there is a national testing agency set up under the Supreme Court order, which is very good. Many people are going out on NTA not to have it for vested interest, because many of the state governments have their politicians running medical colleges. They don't want this. They want to manipulate. And many of the college management, many of them in many states which are run by politicians, want to manipulate. There's so much of money. The coaching mafia, largely, not all of them, want to manipulate. So there's a very large vested interest. There's a lot of money involved. So we got to handle it all carefully. So we got to have a structured process, put a process document. The NTA must be strengthened, and NTA must do it. And we must make sure that responsibility is fixed on people with the review process,
Okay.
with a maker checker, so things fall in place. And we cannot have a system that every time something goes wrong,
Right.
the minister, what will the minister resigning do? The minister resigning is not going to improve matters. What you must say is what went wrong. They must make a report what went wrong, how are they rectifying, how will they make sure it doesn't happen again. It'll become a wake-up call. No complacency should set in. So we got to have a very structured.
All right. How do we beat the exam mafia specifically and the leak mafia? That is the number one problem. That is obviously, at fault here for leaking these papers. How do we combat them, sir?
See, we must make sure the people who commit the fraud are met with exemplary punishment. So we must have an agency which will investigate them. Now I think the CBI or some agency has caught them. The 11 people put behind bars. They must be prosecuted. A special court should be set up, and within 6 to 9 months they must be sentenced and punished for what they did. It is not forgiving. And if any coaching mafia or anything is done, they must be shut down. And we must tell all the coaching mafia and everything that we're going to shut you down if you find something wrong and you commit a fraud on people. We're going to shut you down. And there's got to be no mercy there. So we got to be quick in dispersing justice. It goes on and on and on for multiple years, and there's no justice. Things don't work. So we got to have a special court, special investigation, immediately filing charge sheet and punishing them all within 9 months to 12 months, and then the message goes home.
Also, how do we solve distribution chain issues? In India, there are very complex distribution chains for exam papers and, all of that, of course. How do we, use expertise to ease the system and to make it more efficient?
See, in the distribution chain system, we got to find out how IIT JEE does that, right? They do a good job. So we go to, in every city, every town, there are 5,000 census towns, every city, every town. We got to identify places, schools or colleges which have computer-based testing equipment, and you must do a full due diligence and certify them. And we got to make sure that they're all certified, they're all ready, and people are trained there. And you must have a proper security protocol to make sure that no student is denied of an entry. And for that purpose, what I suggest is you can't have 25 lakh, 30 lakh people tested on the same day. It's too much. It becomes a mess. Even in China, they got large numbers. It becomes a mess. You have a two-step process where people can do the ordinary test to qualify for the final test, and they can do it maybe 2 times or 3 times, and everything is computer-based, so that the degree of difficulty is the same, and then the top 20%, 25% qualify for the final test, from which they can go to colleges and take the seats, depending on what the ratio. If there is 1 seat, maybe 5 people, or whatever it is, whatever ratio they decide, that will be very good. So we must reduce the stress in the entire system and make sure we deal with smaller numbers for the final selection, because the numbers of people who get in is very small. We have about 1,35,000 or 1,40,000 seats for MBBS, for which 21, 22 lakh people apply, right? And getting them all into one test and doing it is too much. And please remember, the stress level rises because you failed that you miss a year. Why should you miss a year? Why can't you have it 4 times a year? And you can, in the 4 times, you can do it maybe twice or thrice. And the best marks is put forward to the final configuration. That'll be better, because that will also do away with reduce the impact of the mafia, which tries to push people for long-term 1 year, 2 year courses, blah, 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 wherein you can do these things multiple times. And so many young people will try to do it.
Okay. Okay, let me also ask you, the fact of course is that we've used UPI, or rather we've built UPI, and now of course the world is using UPI. That wasn't a very easy digital system to build, but we did it. Should we digitize this entire process of examinations? Is that going to help plug the gap? Go digital, Dr. Pai? Would you believe that that is the solution?
Yes, it can do it. It's not about, we can do it easily. It's not about digitization, because, there's a difference here. Please remember, when I take a test, we got to have security to make sure that I take the test and not some Benami in my name, right? Whereas in a UPI and other system, if you have the code or somebody gives the code, you can do what you want. And the system is different. Yes, we do that very well. So there's no reason why we can't do it well. The systems exist. It requires better management, better testing to make it happen. It's not a system issue, it's a management issue. The whole thing is a management issue, not a system issue. Systems you can build. Management has to improve. Management has to be top of the line. Management has to be done well. And there has got to be local management. For example, more states have their CET, Common Entrance Test exam. They have an examination authority. Use them also to run it in that local state, so that you have a center, NTA, which does it, and locally it is done by the local testing, because they know the local circumstances, and make them accountable too. For example, today we have an all India test, the NEET, right? Something happened in some state. Why should somebody in Bangalore or somewhere where there's no leakage suffer for it? So if something happened in some days, the local authority which is responsible, they will be held accountable. I think we should do that. Now everything goes to Delhi, everything goes to one agency. They got to hold it in 5,500 places, all others, and let them use the local agencies, accredit them. I think they did it for the second half. Right. I think they did it. They should do the same.
Also, we see too many students very often for few seats. That encourages black marketing as well. The number of aims, of course, has increased. But how overall can this problem be tackled in our country?
Well, there's a problem of scale. You'll be surprised to know that we have 1 crore or 1 crore 10 lakh young people completing the degree every year. Okay, and that's not going to go away. Our gross enrollment rate, as per their 23-24 iShare report, is just about 30. That means only 30% of 18-23 go to college, and maybe 25% graduate. But the numbers are going to go bigger and bigger. So we got to expand the seats. For example, we need 100 institutions like IIT with 1,000 seats each. So at least 1 lakh young people can get better education. So we have to invest much more into public education. We have to expand capacity of the larger institutions. Each IIT should have at least about 10-12,000 students. They can manage it because they got good management. They can manage it. Many of them say quality will come down because of a large number. That's rubbish. Don't tell me that 1 lakh young kids are not smart enough in a country where every year 1 crore young people come to college. So I don't think that is tenable. Yes, they have challenges of faculty because faculty is not developing so fast. But we must learn to manage all that, because the education that we give in most institutions is not based on research. It's based on developing the kind of skills that children need to get a job in life and things like that. We got to do that. And second, we got to lower the cost of education. We don't have enough public seats. Cost of education, the private sector is high because the full cost has to be borne. And the only way they can pay the cost is to make the students pay. There's no other money coming in. So we got to see how to lower the cost of education for everybody. That means government should run a scholarship program whereby children can apply and get scholarship based on means, etc. And I think it's important to do it in public institutions too, private institutions too, with public money, so that people can get scholarships. So the cost of education for everybody comes down. I think it's important to lower the cost of education. And that's an investment where the central government and state governments have to do. State government don't give scholarship. Only 35% of young people in college go to the state universities or the central universities. Even there, the fees have gone up. So I think a lot more spending has to happen. So the cost of education comes down. The cost is so high today that it devastates a middle class family. And if you don't belong to the reserved category, you are devastated. Because if you don't belong to the reserved category, you are shut out of large educational opportunities, you shut out of large job opportunities in the government, and you are only pushed into the private sector, and where the jobs may not be so much, and there, so you pay through your nose.
Okay.
For medicine, it may cost you 60 lakhs to 1 crore.
Okay.
In a private college, that's too much. That's too much. We must see how to reduce the cost of medical education, how to reduce the cost of engineering education. We must see all that. And I think it's very important to have scholarship programs so that more and more people can give scholarships.
Right.
Maybe what could be done is, out of the CSR contribution by companies, they can get a deduction if they contribute to a national scholarship fund. The government can have a national scholarship fund open to the unreserved category, and you can ask all companies and individuals to contribute, give them 100% tax deduction, and it will be managed by a central authority where everybody can apply, and based on means and their ability, they get scholarship.
All right. Now, my last question to you. We're facing the bad side of diversification, over obsession, over dependence on exams as well. Some of our panelists referred to this earlier. How do we tackle this in fields like medical education? This over-dependence culture, over-obsession with examination. Mohandas Pai.
See, in medical education, we have a problem because the number of seats are limited. The aspirants are much higher. Okay. And there, we got, I think, 1,35,000 or 1,50,000 seats. Maybe we'll go up to 200,000 seats. I don't think we should go beyond that because there'll be no demand for doctors maybe in 10 years' time. Because if you look at the ratios of doctors, I think we need one doctor for 1,000 citizens or something. So we got to be very careful about the kind of doctors that are there. We got to see how do you reduce the cost of medical education? How do you expand the seats? And for that, we must allow brownfield expansion. And the rule, in my thing, will be very simple. Any medical college in the private or government sector, which has been there for more than 20 years and which has been rated for a particular rating, should be free to expand up to 500. Now they cap 250. Brownfield is better. Then they say we want to start a medical college in every underserved district. Now you start a new medical college. Where are you going to get the faculty? There is no brand for the medical college. It's somewhere in the district. And it's very difficult to get faculty, provide infrastructure and all that in the first 10 years. Why can't we have more brownfield expansion? So we have more medical colleges with 500 seats intake, which can be very managed. And you allow them to expand and they will create high quality seats and the cost of education can come down. And if you look at the requirements for a medical college, they're too unnecessarily complicated. Reduce the requirement, not in terms of quality of education, in terms of so many classrooms, this and that, reduce it. And, make sure that you have a district hospital beds. So you don't have to start a hospital. You can have a district government hospital attached to them. So cost comes down. We got to reduce the cost, allow good institutions more than 20 years to expand, by which there'll be good management and more good seats will come. That's the way to do that for medical education.
All right, Mohandas Pai, we'll have to leave it at that.